This is one of the most isolated places on our planet, the Bikini Atoll. From up here, it's an idyllic Pacific Ocean paradise. This is, however, the site of one of humankind's most destructive experiments. Between 1946 and 1954, the United States detonated 23 nuclear bombs on the atoll. Now, more than 70 years after much of the atoll was blasted to pieces, coral researchers Sylvia Jageroos and Didier Zoccola are here to investigate the coral reefs in these waters.
So we're going to jump down and check out the biodiversity and resilience of Bikini Atoll. I mean, the trauma that this atoll endured many years ago is kind of the worst impact, human impact, single impact on an environment that ever happened. The first thing when you jump in the water, you don't know what you're going to expect, right? So for me, it's not only about the big and bold, it's also about the small and the micro habitats that you can encounter on the reef. So when you dive down and you go through the different habitats, you go from the slope to the crest to the reef flat, and you see that the whole ecosystem is healthy. You find all the different functional groups of fish and all the different invertebrates, giant clams, giant sea cucumbers, and everything is healthy and thriving. That's very rewarding as a marine biologist. And it's just reminds me of why I do what I do. It's extremely interesting to see a reef that's undisturbed from human activities such as pollution, and here it's kind of not overfished. If we compare a reef that's overfished to a reef that's not overfished, if we would have an impact of, for example, enhanced temperatures, the reef will bleach, and if we do have the other organisms that help the reef, like for example grazing fish, like herbivores, when the corals are fighting for survival, you know, the algae will grow much faster than the coral. The fish will eat the algae and the coral may have a chance, but if we don't have the fish grazing on the algae, the coral doesn't stand a chance. We need all the helpers.
Sylvia and Didier are surprised by the healthy state of the sea and the coral reefs on their first dive, where they observe and collect coral samples. Time passes all too quickly before their air supply starts to run low and they're forced to surface.
Okay.
So Sylvia, how was it?
Great! It was amazing. Thank you. We see so many corals. We wanted to stay longer, but we were forced up apparently because of the air limitation. So what I'm doing is drying the samples.
And what's the purpose of drying them? What are you going to do with them?
We're gonna identify with microscopic photography the skeleton. You can see the different species. So we're trying to understand the biodiversity of the atoll, of the different species, and as you know, biodiversity is the driving force of life that underpins the survival of the fittest in the ocean. That will be very important. Yeah. For Bikini Atoll's survival of the climate change, for example. The best case scenario would be that we have managed to collect as many samples of different species as possible, and that we can discover that the atoll is very biodiverse, or more biodiverse than we thought. So in comparison to other atolls, that would be a very great sign of ocean resilience. Yeah, given what this atoll has been through.
The atoll is 90 kilometers across, and 23 nuclear blasts had a huge impact, way beyond here. Our scientists will now dive in the 2-kilometer wide Castle Bravo crater. This is the epicenter of by far the largest detonation, a 15 megaton hydrogen bomb that obliterated 3 islands and reduced everything in this crater to a white powder.
And I was expecting nothing inside because all was destroyed. All was blasted 70 years ago. And now there are some life and some corals, few of course, but still corals inside. So it's a nice surprise.
Typically when you go down, you find a sandy flat, which is kind of bare, with a little bit of algal assemblage, so on and so forth. But as you dive further along, actually we found live coral, and we find a lot of associated fish communities and the vertebrates. And we also found corals that's been alive for a while now, so they're quite big size. And I also saw a couple of species I haven't seen before here in Bikini Atoll. And one species of Acropora I have never seen before in my life, so that's very interesting. So now I'm curious to see what that could be.
Sylvia and Didier have observed and collected corals in the shadow of devastating destruction. But an unexpected impact of the nuclear tests has been that this place has been spared almost all human exploitation and other impacts since the early 1950s. The scientists will now take their samples and their findings back to Didier's research facility in Monaco, where they will examine, stress test, and analyze them.
I think this trip has given me energy to continue to do what I do. Sometimes when you work and you see that, particularly last year was very bad for coral bleaching, it's very hard as a coral restoration practitioner to go in the field and work every day. But then when you come to areas like this, you can actually see that if we leave nature alone, nature do its thing. And I think that's beautiful, because that's something that we definitely can do. We can't leave nature alone. We cannot stop climate change, but we can stop pollution, we can stop overfishing. So in that sense, yes, this trip has definitely given me hope.